Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? You hanging in there? We got a couple days to go yet. You pacing yourself okay? All right. I just want to ask before we start, how many of you are students? Yeah, and how many of you are working filmmakers on the set? Yeah? And how many, Ed, come on, raise your hand.
The student part.
Yeah, okay, students, lifelong, yeah. And how many are DPs? Great. We're very lucky here today to have two masters. As you know, I need no introduction, right? I mean, they have 10 Oscar nominations between them, but perhaps more importantly, their bodies of work are what inspire us and what make us want to be filmmakers. And varied depth, the humanity in their work is amazing, and it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be with them for me, and I'm sure for you. And this is my job, but don't tell my boss. But I would do this for free. It's such a pleasure. I used to work with a shovel all day long, and now I get to do this. So I feel very lucky, and I'm sure all of you do too. We're going to talk a little bit to get going and open things up. Did you see them tete-a-tete? They had their heads together, and I thought, well, whatever they're talking about, that's what we all want to hear, right? The conversation. So I really want to get them talking to each other, bouncing off of each other, surprising each other with their thoughts and ideas. We don't really have an agenda. We tried to talk yesterday a little bit about what we should talk about, and it came down to the light and how it makes us feel, and when it's appropriate, how to find the right language for a film. Usually it's best to talk about a specific project, especially just to get going until we get kind of to the bigger philosophical issues. I want to ask Bruno about Macbeth. Talking to them, I see certain similarities, I see certain differences. Obviously, they're two unique individuals, but they do have some similarities, and they just have both recently done, big, successful, amazing black and white films. They're both international artists, work around the world. I want to ask them about how that impacts their point of view and their decisions and their sensibilities. I think they both talk about musicality in their work and rhythm and melody. Often this word melody comes up. They've both done films that are explicitly music-based, like Bruno did the Llewyn Davis, and his quote to me was, "I wanted it to be like a sad folk song, the pictures." And Ed just recently did Maria, and he said, I needed it at times to be operatic, So I just love this idea that, Bergman said, no art passes our conscience in the way that film does and goes directly to our feelings, deep down in the dark rooms of our souls. That's how it's like music. Music and movies and cinema reach past your rational mind and give you feelings. And these are the guys that create those feelings with their images, I also want to start with another quote from Bergman that Sven told me, which is that in his autobiography, Bergman says, he has this line, he says, light, the gentle, bare, dreamlike, living, dead, clear, misty, hot, violent, sudden, dark, spring-like, falling, straight, slanting, sensual, subdued, limited, poisonous, calming, pale light. And that was a quote that Sven pointed out to me, and I know that early in your career you worked with Sven quite closely. And I'm also fascinated that Bruno worked very closely with Henri Alekan, another master of black and white. I just wanted to set the stage like that, and then ask you, Bruno, when you came to Macbeth and you were talking with Joel Cohen about how it should look, you came to this stark approach. Tell me about the earliest conversations and how you began to find your way to the right light for that project.
You want to answer this? Wow. I'm sorry, I don't usually talk much, but so I think the project came, it was all about Shakespeare, basically, and it was about the language, and so Joel didn't want to do a play, so if you haven't seen it, so it's Macbeth with Denzel Washington as Macbeth, Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth, and it was directed by Joel Cohen. So from one of the brothers. So so he didn't want to. He wanted to do a movie. So but he wanted to emphasize the language and not compete with it. So but the Shakespeare language is a rhythm. There is, for example, there's something which is called the iambic pentameter, which is very specific to English poetry, which doesn't translate in French poetry, and which is boom, boom, a rhythm like that. So he said he wanted to work with those rhythms, but not compete with Shakespeare. So, but at the beginning it was, how can we create a rhythm in the movie which is not the rhythm of the language? And then when we start discussing it, he said, so we said it could be like an haiku, the Japanese poetry, and where everything is reduced to a simple line, or I mean, there is rule in haiku poetries, but you could say that it's really very, very little things, and that's where we started to decide that we were not shooting on a castle, we were building walls and staircase and all those different things which were rhythm as well. But so there was the set were rhythm inside the rhythm of Shakespeare, and then light became a rhythm inside the rhythm. So it's all about rhythm, in fact. Mm-hmm. So that's how it kind of started. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a long answer. Yeah.
Ed, you
see what I mean? Do you? Oh, do you see what I mean, Ed?
Yeah.
Ed, I'm curious, the same question regarding I'm Not There, which you shot black and white, was a musical film. And then, maybe talk about El Conde and Maria, about this idea of melody and rhythm in the images, and how you thought about music as you approached the visuals for those films.
Well, to, further the ideas that Bruno brought up, that, it's always a question, does the content dictate the form, or the form dictates the content? And somehow it's a marriage of the two. You go back and forth. But it's great in pre-production to come up with a visual style that comes out of the content of the story. And those are three different films, but I'm Not There was a reference to who Bob Dylan was, or who he appears to be in different times of his life. So that's why Todd had the idea of having 6 different characters play Bob Dylan. He wasn't one character, he was a multiple. And so that brought up the idea of shooting it in different visual styles. And because Dylan was so influential from the 70s up until now, that, or when our film only takes place really up until he goes electric. I guess similar to, Faden's work that's here, which is quite nice. So there were different visual styles in the film. So there's the style of Heath Ledger, and that one he's involved with a French. He meets what's her name? you know the actress. Oh, what's her name? Oh, her father was a great.
Yeah, Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Oh, Charlotte Gainsbourg, right. So his idea was that Godard and Dylan, it was about the sexual politics at the time. So what better reference to use is like a Godard film, Masculine and Feminine, which was, I asked him about Willie Caron, who shot that. And then I won't mention each one, but let's say the When He Goes Gospel, then we use a documentary that inadvertently I shot, Say Amen Somebody, and we shot it in the style of a documentary. And so these are the clues you look for to create kind of the texture, the authenticity, I think, of the believability of, the audience doesn't have to totally understand that, but they're influenced by how you portray a story visually. And that's what I think Bruno does so well, and I try to do.
You do it better than I do, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing you said to me
Actually, I reference Macbeth for El Conde, because it was so rich and it was so beautifully photographed in black and white. But we can talk about that later, how I approached it.
Well, let's talk about that. We talked about some interesting things yesterday about the different ways that you approach the black and white. You were using the blue light, and tell us about how you found your way to that stark look, because it was completely different from what Ed did.
Yeah, I think we probably have a different approach of many things, in fact, which I think is always kind of interesting, because it leads to a dead-end discussion in some ways, because we all have our thing. For me, for example, I do a lot in post. I love post-production. So, for example, I don't use diffusion in front of lens. When you have the Ariston filters, for example, at some point, and it was great, but there was only 5 gradations. Now I can develop the software of blurring, which I can control even more than 5 filters. So that's how I use technology in some ways. And then the shooting part of it is very basic. So I use a kind of the same lens for decades. The Cooke S4s. So I use the S7 on Macbeth because it was an Alexa LF and not a regular Alexa. And so, but I love the Cookes. So I'm not into high technology. But regarding Macbeth in terms of shooting, it was an LF with a Cooke 7s, and I was using only those lights, the movers, and some LEDs. But that's it. But it was because I wanted to have sharp shadows and stuff like that, very sharp shadows, and but it's kind of impossible. There is a colonnade in Macbeth with arches. So, which were, I don't know, there was probably 12 of them. And so it's impossible to get a hard shadow. So, but with those lights, I was able to project a shadow. And so I used the technology which was kind of appropriate with that. Then in terms of the blue channel, so we discovered, I didn't use a black and white Alexa, a monochromatic Alexa. It was shot in color, but I was rating the camera at 3200, but I shot with light at 6000 Kelvin, so it was saturated in blue. But we used the blue channel and in fact the 3 channel, but basically the blue channel to play as a filter, like when you do black and white photography. You can use a yellow filter. So basically, the channel became filters in post. So, which was fabulous. It allows us to play. We could almost, with a blue channel, we could almost turn Denzel Washington's skin tone white, almost. I mean, it was incredible. So it was, that's a use of technology, which is kind of the opposite of what Ed does.
Well, it didn't exist. There was an XT, and the 65 millimeter that had a black and white sensor, but it didn't exist when you shot your film.
It did.
No,
It did.
Not
It was,
the LF.
not the LF.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
not the
yeah,
LF.
yeah, yeah. So we wanted to shoot in the LF, and we shot 2-to-1. And the reason we wanted to shoot in the LF and not the XT was the spaces we were in. The camera we felt was too large to move the camera around, especially because we always had a 15-foot techno crane with us, which I don't know if was true or not, but they said wouldn't hold the weight of the camera. I don't know if that's true, but that was the argument that was given. So I was very fortunate. He's here, Marco Messenger, who's a cinematographer in Germany and a color scientist and a producer, encouraged me to talk to ARRI if they would institute it in the LF body. And I never thought it would happen because they were coming out with the Alexa 35. But like 10 days before the shoot was in Chile, the camera arrived. So, but they really couldn't do tests. So what was on the plus side was because of not having the bare pattern and the infrared filter on it, I gained 3/4 of a stop. So 800 became 1280, 1280 became 2000. So that was wonderful. Then the other parts of that worked for me there was that I could use filters, black and white filters, old Harrison filters that I had. But you bringing up the blue channel, I never worked out if you could put black and white filters on a color sensor, and then when you transpose it to black and white, would it work the same way?
No. No,
I didn't think it would. Right?
No, we tried.
Oh.
I mean, I said we because it's because I work closely with Peter Doyle, who is my grader. I mean, my grader, who's a fantastic grader. So who worked with me for years. So we did tests with even with infrared filters and stuff like that, and it didn't work.
Oh, all right.
So, but it's when I think it's when the technology becomes so cumbersome. You see what I mean? That my point is always to bring it back to something I can control a little bit.
Right.
So where I feel a bit natural for me. I'm not a geek at all. So I trust people around me who want to work with me. But so in fact I bring it back to something I can understand, and my brain is small.
Right, so that confirms that what I thought, you couldn't do that. So the elements that were open to me then were the black and white filters on a black and white sensor, so then they would respond. And then I had, it was just coincidental, I had rehoused the original Baltar lenses from 1938, not the super Baltar lenses because they have a different coating, that were made for reflex cameras. So those were the lenses that were used in Magnificent Ambers, Touch of Evil, and parts of Citizen Kane. And the reason those lenses have a feeling is they're a very simple coating. There are only 6 elements in the lenses. And also something I came to understand, when glass sits around for years, it changes. And either how people clean it, how it's stored. How do you get that out of so-called classical glass, new glass, being made to look like old glass? So anyway, I was very fortunate to have these rehoused lenses, and from the 40 up to the 152, they covered full frame. From the 40 below, they didn't. But the Alex Nelson of Zero Optics came up with glass to expand the Baltar glass, and so I was able to have full frame from 21 up. And then the last thing was, it was the first time I got to really use the EL zone system. And what was so interesting is that was really created by Ansel Adams and Archer for black and white film. That's how they would grade, understand the exposure latitude of the film. So what this gave me was when I could see on the monitor, with Small HD had it incorporated in their monitor, I could then exactly see where I could have still detail in the highlights and detail in the shadow, and the mid-range then came through in a way that was hard for me to get in other formats. So that's partly, those three things I think gave the look to that film. But, I loved, your film was a reference for me, Macbeth. So, there's different ways of doing the same thing. So that's...
Bruno, I think if I remember right, I read where you were concerned with the midtones as well, and you wanted to control that very much. So, is that correct? Do you remember that about Macbeth? The way you balance the highlights, the lowlights, and the midtones, is that a concern for you on that film?
I think it's not specific to this movie. I'm a control freak. I mean, I try to control. I mean, how can I put it? When I was working on film, I was overexposing a lot. Sometimes I was overexposing one stop a half, just to get a very thick neg. And I try to do the same with digital. I said I try to protect as much as I can, but everything is based. I mean, when I said it's a dead-end discussion at some point, it's always based on the way you light. I use a lot of soft light. I mean, I hardly use hard light. It's very, very, so it's soft. It could be a 20K on a book light, and then I put layers of magic cloth or whatever diffusion, and at the end of it, and the 20K is just here, and at the end of the day, you just have 2 as a stop, you see, and at 800 or 500. So so in fact, everything is based on the way you work, and even the LUT I use now is, and Peter Martsen, who is a fantastic who worked with me several times, who is here. He knows that with Peter Doyle and Peter Martsen, we developed a LUT, which is almost the same LUT I use on every movie. I adapt it a little bit, which is a underexposed LUT, basically. And but I protect, both ends of the curve. But but this LUT is based on the way I work, and because people, I don't know how to use hard light, for example. So it's something I don't like. I don't visualize. But a soft light, I can really find my way through it. So it's a lot of bounce and a lot of things like that. So the LUT has a meaning for that. So I protect the midtones, obviously, and when you have Denzel Washington in the same frame as Francis McDormand, you could be in trouble. You see, so it's where you have to protect the mids, because that's where you can work later, because otherwise there is nothing you can do anymore. I mean, it's so yeah.
I'm fascinated by this, the tension between you're always trying to keep it simple, but you're driven with this artistic vision and you want to get there, and you use your collaborators and the people that you work with, your colleagues that understand the technical aspects to achieve this vision that you have, but you're always trying to keep it simple for yourself so that you can react intuitively and work in the way that you like to work on the set. I guess my question is, how do you keep the technology from overwhelming the artistic human side of what it is you do? Because that's where it's at. You know, you're trying to get that on the frame, and you have this huge behemoth, sometimes a lot of technology, and it can be overwhelming. And I know that, you know, you guys are masters and you're used to doing that and you can tune that all out. But is there a time in your career that you had to learn to tune it all out? Do you have to fight against that now? Do you know what I'm asking, Ed?
Yeah, like just visited a set in Taiwan, and the whole set was lit with LEDs. And I go, oh my God, how old I feel. Like I use a Astera some places, I use sky panels, but like I'm still gonna shoot with tungsten light and HMI as my basic light, and then use those to implement areas. Because the LED thing is like, I just think, I don't know, there's a different feeling to the light when you use tungsten light towards the image. So, yeah, I'm always trying to catch up, but not, like he said, I'm not the most technical. I learn what I need to know for that project, but that's about it, you know.
Yeah, I'm the same. You know, I'm self-taught, in fact. So there was so many things. You know, I find myself at 25 years old trying to understand, you know, what kids learn at 15 years old in school in physics and optics, and I gave up. I said, oh, I hate it, so I surround myself with people. I learn the basic thing, and then I surround myself with fantastic gaffers and who can help me. You know, my gaffer on Macbeth was Mike Bowman, who just shot the last Paul Thomas Anderson movie. He's a DP now, and he was my gaffer. He was fabulous, but the technology is just like, yeah, it's not so important. I think it's you know, if I have to use LED, I use LED. I mean, that's where we're going anyway with LEDs, you know, because of, you know, I mean, some are fantastic, but ecologically it makes sense. You know, so it's, but I really like a good 20K. It's fabulous. There is nothing better than that. And brutes were even better, but you can't use them anymore.
Yeah, again, to bring up Sven, you're reminding me that I interviewed him in '96, I think, on that movie Chaplin, and it was towards the end of his career and the end of his life. And I was trying to get him to give me some overall philosophy, overarching, you know, kind of conclusion. And he said, David, I spent 40 years searching for simplicity.
Yeah.
And occasionally I think maybe I found it for a moment, you know.
Well, I know we're going to talk about Sven, but I was his operator for like 3 years, 2.5 years. And he did everything the simplest. If someone used a 10K, he would use a 2K soft light. He always managed to do it the simplest way. And that was a great lesson for me.
He said the smaller fixtures had a kind of cleanliness or something that he liked in the image, the smaller fixtures. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I hear from other DPs. At that time, especially, the great big sources with a lot of diffusion and, you know, a big light far back and so that was a different approach, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things you guys have both touched on. Were you going to say something, Bruno? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sven Nykvist was fabulous, but it was his way of working. So, and we all have a different way. You know, again, I love soft light. I don't know how to use hard light. That's simple as that. And it's, you know, there was one thing I said sometime, which there is a beautiful shot many beautiful shots in Barry Lyndon, which was lit by John Alcott. You know, so it's a close-up of Marisa Berenson, and she's totally front-lit. And it's so diffuse, it's really beautiful with a nice fall-off and everything. And I said, I got to try to do something like that one day or another. And every time I tried, I said, it's terrible. It's terrible. And then the light is drifting, just like, can you go left? Can you go right or what? And then, okay, that's beautiful, and I like it, but it's not frontal because I don't see things frontal. I feel uncomfortable. But John Alcott was able to do it, perfectly, and I don't know how he does things, and I'm not even interested. Sorry about that, but he has his own vision, and I have my own. So quoting Sven is great, but Sven Nykvist, but he has his own feeling. We can, using small sources, maybe it works with him. It doesn't work for me. I need big things.
Also, the film stock was different. That he needed more light.
You can't,
It's funny because I did this, disclaimer, which was this series directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and we were two DPs, Emmanuel Lubezki and me, and so we were not lighting the same set. But when I saw Chivo Lubezki lighting, I picked in on his set sometime. I said, "What the fuck is he doing?" There is. And I couldn't understand, it was layers, layers of diffusion, massive amount of light. But even if we were thinking the same way, because we had a lot of discussion about it, but there was a moment where I couldn't understand what he was doing. I said, I don't get it. And he said, why? What is it you don't get? We're the same. I said, no, we're not. We start the same way, but there is a moment where we split.
Yeah, everybody reads their light meter differently, or even if they don't use their light meter, they evaluate the light or the average of the light. Nobody does it exactly the same. It's whatever works for you.
Yeah, and there is one thing with your system, your kind of zone system you're using now, and you told me it's great because if I have to reshoot something,
right,
I can recreate it, and I think it's interesting, but I can't use it in some ways because when I'm shooting something, I'm in a momentum, let's say. If I have to reshoot it, I lost the momentum. I don't know what I did. I don't remember what I did the day before. It's just like as if I was, going from one scene to another. And suddenly if I try, that's the worst nightmare for me. When they ask me to reshoot a shot, for example, I said, I don't remember what I've done. And I think what I did was stupid, and I want to change it now. It's a very weird feeling, and so I can't use your system. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Ed, do you ever look at what you've done the day before, the week before, the year before, and thought, this is stupid?
I used to do a book and write out where each light was, the exposure of the scene. And then I never looked, and then I did Polaroids. A gaffer that we both worked with, John DeBlau. And I would do a Polaroid and then write on the Polaroid. So really the EL zone is just another way to track something that later, if you need it as an assistance, you have something that gives you a visual map of what that scene looks like.
I used to do the same. I had a whole collection of Polaroids, and now I'm using my still camera. I take pictures of where the lights are, and but even though it's, I think there is a moment.
You do that digitally now?
Yeah, I have my camera. I take pictures. I make notes, and
all right, so
have my books.
You're doing the same thing a different way.
Yeah, but there is always this moment where, when I look at the dailies of the next day, I said, shit, I should have done this. Oh. It would have been better. Oh. And when I reshoot something, I change it, and then it doesn't match. So it's stupid.
I think that's a problem for all of us. We always want to do it better.
Is that a problem, or is that the essence of you know, getting to the quality that you get to? I mean, what I've noticed is that the drive to make it better never ends. You know, at the last second, on the fourth take, you know, move this a little bit like this. We can make it a tiny bit better. That drive is always there. You know, I'm not like that. You know, I do it the best I can, and then I walk away. You know, you guys are always driving. You know, do you feel that? Do you have this ambition as towards?
What we do is before the fact. We can't change it. We can partly change it after the fact, but not in a big way. And so I think that comes from that we only have so much time to do something. And so we want to do it the most efficiently way. And if we had more time, we might do it more intricately, but we don't. So we figure out a way to do it the simplest way that can work.
Everything has to happen in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of money, and that's, you know, it's not just a free for all until you get it how you want it, right? You know, I wanted to talk about, you both touched on still photographers, and you know, and Ed, I know you've got deep roots in still photography, and last year we're here with that Robert Frank movie that was fascinating, and actually my favorite movie of the festival last year. Do you remember the name of the Robert Frank movie?
Don't Blink.
Don't Blink. This is a great documentary. Ed appears in it briefly. And Bruno, you were talking about the Dusseldorf School, and you reminded me of that when you were talking about the frontal photography, because they shot things very plainly. Tell us about that Dusseldorf photography, how it affected you, not so much that you were mimicking it or copying it, but you were inspired by it and it made you think.
Yeah, well, okay, well, it's a long thing. You know, the Düsseldorf School of Photography, so you have a photographer like Thomas Ruff, Thomas Struck, Candida Höfer, Helge Hesse. So they were all students of the Bercher, and they were basically questioning reality in some ways. So the one you mentioned with Candida Höfer did a lot of photography of, you know, palaces and libraries where it's really square on. It's a big format, and 8 by 10 or whatever she used. And it's, I mean, questioning reality is interesting. And Thomas Ruff, for example, did pictures of building where he erased things. He could erase a lamppost in post because it was an obstruction in some ways to the question he was asking. So questioning reality is something which talked to me in some ways, because that's what we do. We're questioning reality. What is reality in a movie? I don't think nothing is really in a movie. It's all an interpretation. So that the Düsseldorf School of Photography was interesting for me because it raised those questions which we found in movie making as well. So yeah. What is reality in movie?
The illusion. The reality is the illusion. All right. So, well, look, I was influenced and became good friends with Robert Frank. And so what he instilled in me was that you could imbue an image with your own subjectivity, that you could look at a jukebox, you could look at a flag, you could look at a window. And if you look at his books, especially starting with his first book, The Americans, yeah, you see there's kind of a consistency. It's almost like a narrative in the book. He doesn't just photograph everything. He finds things that kind of relate to the story he's telling in the whole book. And so that was always a big influence on me. And then when I was coming up, Larry Clark, because he was a amphetamine addict and a drug addict, and he was inside the world that he was photographing. And I found that really fascinating. And then years later, I made a film with him. But I'm saying I'm always looking at, you know, your work, and I'm looking at photographers always for influence, just to see where how they see things.
Great, thank you. You know, we're almost ready to open it up for questions, so think of a few good questions. But just before we do that, there's a couple of things that we also talked about in our pre-conversation that maybe we should touch on, and that I guess it would fall under the category of sort of trends in cinematography. And Ed, you know, we were talking about depth of field and how you perhaps had been misconstrued on a recent quote, and you wanted to address that. And we also talked a little bit about movement, the decision to make movement, the director sacrificing the control of the placement of the camera, which is maybe the most important question that you ask.
I had a conversation with Roger Deakins on his podcast, and we were talking about people's approach to shooting digitally and making it feel like it's film. And so what I was trying to discuss was the point of being such a limited depth of field that people think that gives them the grain structure. And I said, no, for me it's kind of like mush. So this writer picked that out and said, and then he even used the film that I used as a reference, which I felt really bad about, because for the most part, I'm around to try to support young filmmakers. I saw a film here that I think is brilliant. It's called Father, a Czech young cinematographer who's Polish, Adam Suss. And so I really resented that, but then everybody said, don't get into it, don't write back, because if you do, that would just open up the whole can of worms. That's what they want to do. But I really felt bad, because I'm not here to criticize others, because I know how hard it is what we do, but to give encouragement. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that.
And you know, we were talking about movement and the tendency to go handheld. Any thoughts about that, Bruno? You know, do people go to handheld too much these days? Again, we don't want to criticize, but you know, in the privacy, we were, you know, we had some thoughts about that, you know.
Oh no, God, I don't know. I don't care. Okay. You see, so no, the thing is, okay, so I'm 1.74 m. All the actors now are 1.80 m. When I go handheld, I'm always like that. So I don't do handheld because I don't like to be like that. It becomes like I need some kind of rig, and I'm not good at handheld. I'm really not good. Chivo is amazing handheld. Lubeski, he's amazing. He's fascinating, but I'm not good. And then it questioned, what is handheld exactly? What are we trying to achieve handheld? And so if it's to go fast, why not? It's a system. And if it's just because it's organic, I think it's stupid. And you know, so it's. But my feeling is I don't want to move the camera anymore. That's my my mantra now. Just don't fucking move the camera, and just or you know, that's one thing we discussed with Joel Cohen when we did Macbeth, and I just finished a new one with him, and we basically we discussed Kurosawa, because we're a big fan of Kurosawa. But Kurosawa was only moving the camera when he wanted to change the point of view. It was just based on the blocking with the actors. So, and because you could be trapped suddenly in a corner and not being able to do anything. So Kurosawa was moving the camera, true, and then it's as if it was creating a new blocking so it could evolve. So I think it was, I mean, amazingly smart. But so if I don't, I mean, I'm not alone. There is always a director. I don't have the final decision. If the director wants to move the camera, I say, okay, without me, but do it. Yes. But You see, so, but it happens that with Joel Cohen, we are on the same kind of page. On the other hand, with Alfonso Cuarón, we designed, I mean, he designed, because he's kind of brilliant, shots which were really amazing, with Technocrane and stuff like that. I was just like, okay, maybe I should change my mind about not moving the camera, even if I thought that the shot sucks at the end of the day. But no, it's brilliant. But so it's, I know if we ask anyone in this audience, we all have a different point of view about it, and but I don't have a specific one, except that I don't like to move the camera anymore. That's it.
Ed, does that spark any thoughts?
Well, the only thing I would say is there's a time and place for handhold versus moving the camera. And the problem is sometimes I see they use handhold because the director's relinquishing the point of view of how to tell the story. They figure if the emotional reality is that you're handhold in a shot with the actors, that it's believable. But I think we're way beyond that, and so I get tired when I see a film being shot handhold that didn't need to be shot handhold, because what's it bringing to the storytelling? And that's my problem with, I love handhold if it's used properly. In fact, the film that I mentioned, the Czech film, is all handhold, but not handhold in a traditional way. He had a gimbal. I mean, I didn't even know it was handhold. I thought it was a Steadicam, and it was brilliantly shot. So it's the way you use a tool that makes it effective or not.
Yeah. I agree. Sir, it links to, I was thinking, you've seen Clute, Alan Jepukula movie. So in Clute, because it goes back to the depths of field as well, it's an interesting. Clute is a fantastic movie, from the 70s, directed by Alan Jepukula with Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda, and led by Gordon Willis. So it's kind of, it's typical Gordon Willis kind of light, if there is such a thing as typical Gordon Willis. But it's wide angle, blah, blah, blah. And there is one scene which is long lens with a very shallow depth of field. And it's when, Jane Fonda kind of fall in love with Donald Sutherland, that they are buying vegetable in the market, blah, blah, blah. That's the only, so it becomes a language. You see what I mean? It's just like suddenly he's breaking the rule of the whole movie, but for a reason. And there is a shallow depth of field. You can see the lamppost, dots like that. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And but there is a desire behind it, so just to change, as if the character were changing as well. So something is happening to them, and then he changed the language of the camera. I thought it was magnificent, so, but the depth of field is a very interesting thing, because I used to try to match, not matching the depth of field. I kind of always use a 27 mil, but if I have to go with a longer lens, which is kind of rare, but based on the distance we have, even if we shoot at 8 as a stop, the depth of field change. So, but I was setting, let's say 8 as a stop for a shot. And then to keep the same feeling, not the same depth of field, I was using neutral if I needed to, just to change, but always to keep this kind of same feeling of the depth of field looks the same, even if it's not, depending on the value. I don't know if I'm clear, but depth of field is a very interesting topic, in fact. And in Clute, he breaks the depth of field, which is wow, you say, wow, they were smart.
Ed, any thoughts along those lines? Or?
No, I like depth of focus also, especially when you're in a scene and you're shooting, let's say, 35, and obviously you have the depth of field, and then you go to a long lens and you're going to lose it. It's kind of jarring for me. So I love to have a high stop when I go to a longer lens. So like you said, it feels more like it's part of the same scene. It's not taking me visually out of what I'm looking at.
Should we go to questions? No?
Go to question.
Okay, let's go to questions from the audience. So there's a couple. There's one right here and one in row 5 there. Keep your questions, down to a minute, please. Go ahead in the first row here.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for being here. I do have a bit technical follow-up question for Bruno. As you talked about developing the LUT, and also that you try to protect the footage in terms of exposure as much as possible. Do you include that in the LUT in a way that the show LUT on set has already limited the range, that it's all shrink, that you know that you have there's enough exposure in the log footage, but the picture you see on set with the LUT is already graded more, so you have this protection?
The LUT is just for exposure more than anything. It's not. It's not the final look of the movie, So even if I try to do as much in camera as I can, in fact, when I light the set, it's basically what you're going to see in the movie. It's what I did. I don't change it, so I light a lot. But the LUT is an exposure thing, and but now Peter Martin could say that on Disclaimer. He reminded me. On Disclaimer, I use a prototype with Chivo. We use the prototype of the Alexa 35, which was 17 stop range and latitude, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. It's more than your own eye, and it's different. But and one day Peter said, "You know what? You just use the 17 stop." I said, "What the fuck?" It's because the white were not even clipping. It was insane. So it's To answer the question, the LUT is just for exposure. And I asked Peter, is everything in there, or should I bring some fill light? Or if he said no, it's there, you can work with it later. I said, okay, fine.
And so do you work on set with colorists or DIT closely during the shoot?
No, I don't, and I do. I trust Peter, so I ask him because I do the light on set. So my LUT is not a look; it's just an exposure kind of thing, and so I use different color temperature, light, blah blah blah. I do the look on set, so I don't need to twist it on set. It's not where I do it. So I ask Peter's DIT just is everything in the neg, period, and that's it. But I don't grade on set. I think it's. But I understand, But I'm a lucky guy. Really lucky, because I know that I'm gonna have, grading session, and even if it could be short, I graded inside Llewyn Davis in 10 days, and Macbeth we graded in 8 days. So it's really fast, but but I'm still lucky. There is people who don't have access to grade the way I do, so they grade on set, which is fine, fair enough, you know. I'm really lucky. Are you lucky?
Actually, the same way. I just use a LUT. I didn't even know what a LUT was, but I use a LUT for exposure. And then every scene's different. So I'll talk to the DIT what I think it should look like. And the reason I do that is because when the director and the editor are in the editing room, and if they look day in and day out, and it's not close to what I think it should look like, they'll in the final grade, they'll say, "Oh, it doesn't look like the dailies. We want it to look like the dailies." So getting around that, I try to get it as close to what I think it should be at that time. So when I'm in the color correct at the end, I don't get that kind of response.
Great. Who's next? In the row 5 here. Yeah. If you get the, or who's got the mic?
First of all, I just wanted to thank both of you for doing this today. You both have been big inspirations, I think, for me and a lot of people in this room. And my question is more of like, as a young cinematographer, kind of like having gone through the paces now, my main reflection is like more on like longevity. Like how do you have any reflections now, like where you are in your career, on like managing the work life to make the work as good and as creative, and kind of like protecting that process?
How do you balance work-life concerns and keep a healthy, happy mental family life?
Oh, healthy life. What is healthy life? Oh my God! Yeah. I don't know. How can we answer this question? I don't know.
It's more like, do you ever have reflections on decisions you made like years after, like, I'm glad I did that project and not that project, more on like a personal, spiritual level, like lessons you would share with younger DPs coming up right now, on like things that you realize you did right, but years later?
I did everything wrong, I think. Now, listen, for example, I can mention 2 things. So after I did Harry Potter, so they asked me to do the last 2. It was 2 years of work, and they paid me a fortune. And I said, no, I don't want to spend another 2 years with Harry Potter. It was 1.5 was enough. So I said no. And suddenly 6 months later, I said, what have I done? I didn't get any phone call for 6 months. Am I stupid or what? I turned down a lot of money for... And then I got a phone call from Alexander Sokurov, and I did Faust with him, where I was paid 10 times less. But it was amazing. And so I suddenly, after thinking that I did a stupid mistake, couldn't pay the bill, I did a fantastic movie with an amazing Russian director for nothing, couldn't pay the bill either, but and that's it. And then, but the second thing was when my daughter was born. She's 21 now. It's very, and I decided to do 1 movie a year only, because I haven't worked in France for years now. So I wanted to see my daughter. So I said, okay, 1 a year, and that's it. And I turned down project. I turned down Inaritu. For example, when I did Macbeth, there was a lockdown, so I stayed 5 months more in the US than I was supposed to, because I couldn't fly back to France. So instead of spending 5 months in the US, I spent 10. And I haven't seen my daughter for 10 months, basically, because it was a lockdown. And then I came back, and Inaritu called me to do Bardo. And it was a month after I was back in France. I said, I can't do it. I won't do it. I don't want to leave. I haven't seen my daughter for a month. I want to stay with her. And it was kind of heartbreaking because Inarritu is a fantastic director, but I said, okay, I can't and I won't. I don't want to spend another 10 months in Mexico and just not seeing my daughter. So you make those kind of decision. Again, I'm lucky because I wish you to have a phone call from Inarritu one day or another, or any of those guys. So I'm really fortunate, but it's you have to make decision, so which are. But it's and it's. I think it's a long topic. It's about your career. What is a career exactly? It's trying to do the thing you like to do. And the movies, I turned down so many action movie because I'm not interested in action movie. I don't know how to shoot it, and I don't even watch them. So it means that I'm working in a little niche, and it means a lot of compromise.
Yeah, very, very well said. Yeah, I always said in a weird way, I don't want to shoot a film if I don't want to see it. And I tended towards Europe. When I came up and started really investigating cinema, and I was in art school, I was taken by Europe. I was by the German New Wave, by the Nouvelle Vague, and then later in South America. So those are the kind of films. So the balance, like you say, look, when you're young, you have to do everything to get experience and get people to know you. But then when you get to a certain point, then just make choices that are not based on financial, unless you're in a situation that you can have to deal with financial, and take films that you feel you have some input, some contribution to why you want to do the film. Like I'm in Taiwan now on a film, and I get there and I find out they don't have all their money. And then I got a call from UTA, my commercial agent is here, for a $30 million film in New York. I said I couldn't do it because I'm invested in this director and this film in Taiwan, which I'll get much less, but I care about that film.
Are there horrible regrets that you live with from way earlier in your career that you wish you'd done something different, that you would say to a young person, don't ever do what I did here?
No, I mean, I can tell you, I turned down Ghostbusters. I didn't understand the script, It was after Desperately Seeking Susan, so I was in there. And then the one film I didn't do, River's Edge, that I was offered because I had a commitment to Susan Seidelman on her second film. But I'd much rather have shot River's Edge.
But is there a lesson there for the young people? You're going to have regrets, I think is the lesson, right? I mean, you do the best you can with the information you have at the moment. And
yeah, it's either the script or the director's vision.
What kind of lesson is it to have regrets? I mean, it's insane. It's just like, don't have regrets. You just try to do something. That's it. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like music. I grew up with the Sex Pistols and the Clash, and now I'm more Nick Cave. But if you like Beyonce, it's okay with me. I don't give a shit. You see, so if you want to do a movie with her, go ahead. You see, I mean, it's having regret is just like awful. I mean, of course, I regret I got phone call from Woody Allen, blah blah blah. So but you got to get over it. I mean, and move on. And each movie is different. So it's just like you want to try something else every time. You see, it's just like, oh, is it a good experience? And there is something which is interesting, in fact, as well, which we never discuss. I mean, it's for me, it's which is important. It's a human experience, you know. When you work with the Coens brother, I mean, it's fabulous. When you work with Sokolov, it's fabulous. And when you have a good gaffer and a good key grip and a good AC and good actors, that's a fantastic human experience, more valuable than anything we're saying. And because eventually a movie is about this. It's not about an Alexa 35. It's all what you share with people, you know. And it's about sharing. If you have regret about this, you're in trouble. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That's some wisdom.
No, it's not wisdom. It's
Yes,
just
I think it is.
just common sense. It's.
I mean,
like
I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go home and start to do this with my regrets. I'm gonna get better at that. Yeah. Who's next? Yeah, there's the mic. Go right up here to the and we'll go up the hill. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, I can say something about regrets. When Inarritu called me to do Bardo, and I said no, Darius Khondji did it, and I hated him. Just I said.
Can we, and the other mic, you know, let's get the other mic to the next person while this guy in the cap. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the thing that I think I've noticed. So I work as a first AD, but I also am aspiring director. So I did work, you know, with cinematographers, but like on an everyday basis, I work with the cinematographers and camera operators. And I noticed the thing, and also I discussed it with many of my colleagues. So if it goes to like young cinematographers, there's this tendency that they want to prove themselves. So they usually like are obsessed with complicated camera movements and sophisticated lighting. And in many projects, you know, it's like it doesn't fit, you know, and there's like really. Certainly, I've heard a lot from my colleagues about this problem that sometimes they're looking for like this simplicity. You mentioned we mentioned like this Sven Nykvist was looking for simplicity. So for sure, there are like some projects that require simplicity, and those young cinematographers tend to, you know, overcomplicate, and they kind of try to prove themselves, you know, how difficult task they can do. So my question is like, is it necessary for young cinematographers to go through this phase, you know, of doing complex and complicated things in order then to go back to simplicity?
I don't think it's necessary.
But it's not about being necessary. It's kind of human nature. It's just, I don't know, if you see any painters, you know, when you see, I don't know if you've seen Picasso, you know, the movies that Clouseau did about Picasso, when you see him drawing, to reach this level of, I mean, it's insane that he's drawing a bull like that, and with 2 lines, you believe in it. But just in order to get to this point, it's 50 years of drawing and drawing and drawing, and maybe the first drawing by Picasso were overcomplicated. It's just simplicity. That's why, you know, when we're all trying to get simple at some point, but there is, in order to get simple, you have to do all the mistakes. I think I did them all. I overexpose, underexpose. I don't know. I panned too fast, so it was throbbing like mad. You know, it's all those things, and then you say, okay, I can learn a little bit. But simplicity, I don't even know what it is. It's, but I think you have to go through this to, you know, I don't know. It's, don't you think?
Well, I mean, it really should come from the director. I mean, it is the director's decision of what they want to complicate or not. And I always try to simplify it because I want to make my day. So I'm of the school, I think, like you, that the simplicity is better because I'm going to make my day. But also, generally, the aesthetic of the film is I try to find the simplest way of creating it.
Great. Who's next?
Hi. Yeah, over here.
Hi.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been such a privilege to listen to both of you. I have a question for both of you about light and emotion. Because presumably there are instances like, you know, light and emotion can be really subjective. Like if I'm in the kitchen with the overhead lights on, it makes me feel like I'm in a mental asylum. Whereas if my girlfriend comes into the same light, she feels happy and energized by that same, you know, overhead light. So there's a dissonance there between like the emotional trigger from the same light. Are you ever in situations where you and the director are misaligned about the emotional response that you're getting from light? And are you just looking for the kind of synergy together where you both align on how a light makes you feel? Or are you relenting to the director's, you know, perception of light and emotion, or vice versa?
Generally, in very few instances have I ever had a director say, I don't think the light is right for this situation. You made me think of one situation. I did a film with Paul Schrader, Light Sleeper. And in this apartment, I don't know what possessed me, but I had a par light, and I moved it around like it was a helicopter, you know, so that there was something happening out the window. And Paul said to me, I think they're going to look more at the helicopter light than my scene. So I took it off. But, you know, if it's a positive, if they really have a reason why they understand the light, I don't really, it's more about camera movement or whatever. I don't find, at least for me, I haven't had directors tell me that the light or the way I use color, because I don't think they see it, to tell you the truth. You know, I mean, all right, now they have a video monitor so they can see a very good representation of it. But I haven't had that issue.
Yeah, I don't know. It happens to me once as well with the coins on Buster Scruggs. I was pre-lighting, and I don't know if you've seen Buster Scruggs, which is a series of short film, and there is one with the opening one is with a cowboy wearing all white and everything, and he's singing in a saloon. And I was lighting it, and Ethan Cohen came and said, what are you doing, Bruno? It looks like Unforgiven, you know, the Clint Eastwood thing. He said, it's a musical. It's a ridiculous musical. It should be full of light. And so he was right. I misunderstood. I wanted to be a bit moody, and it was a good lesson, because it was just like, wow, everything doesn't have to be moody. But in your questions, there is something that you forget. There is some. It happens to me to change the light after the first rehearsal with the actors, because as we discussed, I said, you know, you always, as if we were deciding, but we forget there is a director. But there is actors as well. And sometimes the actor's performance during the rehearsal, you say, fuck, that's strong. My light is killing it. So I have to keep it down, because I'm fighting them. The light is fighting the actor, and that's not a good thing. And so it's you sometimes react to it and say, okay, give me 10 minutes, I'm going to change things. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did think of something more like how you see the scene. So when I was younger, like your age, I always figured it out my way, and I would fight with the director to a degree to get my way. And as I got older, I was a better listener, that I listened to the director, and then it gave me a way of doing it differently. Or just say to him, yeah, all right, and then do it the way you think you should do it.
I had a question here on the left.
Oh, right here. There you are.
So I feel like, at least for me, a big part of why I do what I do, which is cinematography, is that it's, among other things, a very fun job. And I really wanted to ask you, which part of the cinematography process for you brings you the most joy?
None. No, I don't know. I like prep, in fact, more than shooting almost now. Prep is when you dream, in fact. And it's and shooting is reality, and reality hurts. But it's prep is when you go, you say, oh wow, we're gonna do this and that, and it's gonna be the most beautiful light ever made, and eventually it's not, never, but it's prep is no, I'm joking, but it's prep is about trying to understand what you can do with the director and with the script, and this I like a lot, and then I try to stick to it, but and film is a very strange thing as well, When you're shooting, the film the film is evil. They want to go this way, and you have to put it back in the right direction. But because if you listen too much to the film, you're gonna fuck it up. I mean, it's drifting and go to the bad current and the rocks and everything. So you have to. So the shooting is difficult.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is the film takes on its own life, and you set a style, but you don't really know if it's going to work. And you maybe see it in the dailies, or maybe you don't really even see it until the finished product. So I can't say conclusively when I start a film, do I know exactly how it's going to come out visually. Yeah, I just go in with a certain premise. And for me also, the prep is the best time, because one, I get to explore different things I never would have explored, and two, I get to bring in all different visual references, and then the reality sets in when you're shooting of what you can do or not do with those ideas.
Okay, who's next?
Yeah, right here.
Can we bring a mic up top?
I have a
there you
question
are.
about, first off, thank you for this beautiful panel and for sharing your thoughts. And I have a question about black and white. When the idea of shooting a film in black and white comes up, it's often the producers who are intimidated because they understandably feel they might lose a big part of the audience because it's a film in black and white. But we might know and feel that black and white is the right decision for this film. And maybe you could share your experience. How can we maybe guide the producers to, persuade them that black and white is the right decision?
Well, it's difficult because there are many platforms that they're going to show it on, and you hear an argument that if you shoot it in black and white, people are going to think their television sets are broken. So but I mean, it has come out of the story. I mean, Fader is here. He shot his Dylan film in color, and we ended up shooting in black and white. The reason that Todd wanted to shoot it in black and white was we wanted to reference that period that we saw Dylan in, which was black and white for the most part. So it was a visual reference to the world that he was living in at the time. But Faden did another thing that was brilliant, you know, so you can't say one is better than the other. And then El Conde was black and white, luckily because we were in the Spanish market, so they didn't tell him he couldn't do it. And because we were referencing a horror film or a vampire film, because Pinochet is seen as, you know, a vampire. He's sucked the blood out of everybody's life in Chile from 73 to 90 and died a peaceful life without the retribution of the society. And so that was another visual reference, was Nosferatu or Murnau, you know, those films shot in the 30s. And then what's the last one? Oh, I guess that's the two black and white films I did.
You talked about Dreyer, Carl Theodor Dreyer.
Yeah, he brought up Dreyer, and then Murnau was his influences for me on that.
Bruno, convincing the producers it's okay?
I don't, because I mean, again, I'm a lucky person. So when you do Macbeth with Joel Cohen, Joel Cohen say, I want to shoot black and white. They say yes. So I don't have to fight back. So I don't know about those fights. I mean, I know because I heard like you and all like Ed saying, wow, it could be a fight. I didn't experience it, period, because it was the same. We shot Academy, and so it was not a question. We said we're going to shoot Academy, and that's it. And they said, yeah, okay, because it was Joel Cohen. It was not me. I'm nobody. It was just because our big names.
The truth is, we don't have that much power. It really has to come from the director. Yeah,
which leads. That's true. That's what I was trying to say. There is a moment where, as a DP, if the director said no, he said, okay, I'm going to do what you want. You can explain forever that what you have in mind is much better. But it's if the director say, no, I don't care. You do what the director wants, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, who's got the mic?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, first of all. And I was wondering, in your careers, is there a scene or film lit by you that you are proud of?
Is there a what?
A film or a scene?
A film or a scene from a film?
Well, I don't know.
Maybe there are a lot of them.
I think it has to do with regrets. I don't have any regrets of. It's probably by choice sometimes, but every time it was a different experience, and so I like the movie I did. I never watched them again. You see, so when it's done, it's done. So I move on. But why should I be proud? I mean, what is pride anyway? I mean, it's just like. I tried something and sometimes I think I failed, said, it's not, 90% of the time I think I failed, don't you? I mean, I'm just like, oh shit, I should have done this. But that's why I don't watch the movie I've done again, It was funny because there was, I discussed this with Joel Cohen because we showed Inside Llewyn Davis at the French Cinémathèque a couple of years ago, and Joel decided to watch the movie again, and he was laughing at the movie, and I said, "So you're laughing at your stupid joke?" He said, "Yeah, they're pretty good now, aren't they?" And he was just like, "Oh, it's not such a bad movie. I should recut this." And back in New York, he recut the movie. He said, "Yeah." He said, yeah, I watched the movie again. He said, you haven't seen it for, I don't know, 5 years. I said, yeah. And he cut, he cut the thing just for his own pleasure because he didn't release it, but it's just, I'm going to cut it. Fortunately, we can't reshoot anything, but...
No, the only thing I would say is people sometimes ask you, what's your favorite film? So they're all my favorite films. Even if they fail, I know what I put into it, and generally you end up saying the film that's the most popular, but that isn't really the case. They're all your children.
Thank you.
You've been patient up here, yeah.
Thanks so much. I just had a follow-up question about rhythm, because you mentioned something about how the light contributed to the rhythm of a shot, and I didn't quite understand that, and I wanted to know if you two could elaborate on how composition and angles create a specific rhythm of a shot.
Me?
Yes.
Oh.
How angles and composition create a specific rhythm to a shot or a scene, and it's something we talked a little bit about yesterday with the colonnade and the rhythm, black and white.
Okay, so I think light is music. That's what I think. So sometimes, it's interesting to change. I mean, for me, it's interesting just to light a scene and in the middle of the scene to break what you've done. You see, just to say, okay, I'm gonna swap the light the other side or whatever. So there is no continuity in light. I don't believe in it. It's from shot to shot. There is none. It's if the rhythm is right, then it's interesting. But when I read a script, sometimes I ask the director, so what is the light of, or what is the music of this scene? You see, is it? Do you think the actor are gonna go fast, or are they gonna whisper? Or you see, so what do you have in mind? And sometimes I think it becomes a melody. The scene is a melody, and so I try to find the melody with the light as well. So it could be a contradiction, or it could be in the same wavelengths. You see, so and I think there is a moment where scripts are following some rhythm like that, and I try to. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sorry, my English is not good enough. But it's just there is a moment where you could have a very hard light and nothing else, and sometimes it's just really flat, and so it's some kind of musicality in some ways for me, at least. But and how do you break this? Which is.
Ed, any thoughts about composition and movement and rhythm and musicality?
I was going to more talk about light. Well, look, I'll give you an example. Maria, what I finally came up with, because Pablo said to me, opera is a lot like cinema. There's a lot of parallels to each other. And I had been to a few operas, but I was not well versed in opera at all. But what I realized, at least through the camera, they're both an observational art form. You in the audience watching an opera, you're selecting what you're seeing. So that gave me the idea of the camera moving like a moving proscenium, observing the acting, observing the opera, observing her life, because her life became more like an opera, her tragedy or personal life. In fact, her love and adoration was from the masses, but not in her personal life. And then I just used color to, not as a decorative form, but as a psychological tool to show that her apartment was kind of this warm nest, but somehow was invaded by cool color, or green or blue. So those are the ways I think about light. And if I'm shooting a naturalistic film, I come in and look and go, well, look how this place is lit. Now, today in the digital world, you can almost shoot anywhere, you know, but that doesn't necessarily create a look for the whole film. So you have to be consistent. I think that's the hardest thing for us to do, is to be consistent in the style and not change it from one day to another. Even if you want to break your light, at least you have a consistency to know that you're breaking the light. So that to me is the hardest thing, is to know that I'm doing something that's going to work from day 1 to day 3. And like I said, that isn't something you notice right away because of the time, the locations. Locations do everything for me about how I'm going to light or shoot the film.
Who's next? Time for a few more. Up at the top here, and then.
So I was really curious to ask a question to you, Bruno, about your work in the disclaimer, because I have seen it last year at the festival, and you have said some things already, but I wanted to ask about the pre-production you did with Chivo, and to what extent did you consult to make like one style, and what you didn't discuss perhaps? Because I understand that the whole idea of hiring you two as cinematographers was to make those two parts very different. Yeah, and last year also I vaguely remember Quaron saying something that he was controlling the zoom actually, and zooming in the scenes so as to like create more chaos. Yeah, so I'm really interested in that. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a long question, but it's how. So we discussed a lot in prep, but the thing was everything came basically from Alfonso Cuarón, who wanted not only two distinctive look, he wanted two different kind of camera work. And so I was kind of in charge of the Kevin Kline part, and Chivo did the Kate Blanchett, even if we overlap at some point. But it was two different distinctive camera work as well. There is more, my part is more subjective, meaning it's almost the point of view of Kevin Kline. So we discuss a lot this. So, but in and as opposed to the Chivo part, which was with Kate Blanchett, which was much more objective. But so it was a question about what is shooting at the first person or the second person, you know, in the verb tense. You know, so that was the whole concept in Alfonso's mind. But so in prep we discussed, the three of us, about what it was basically. But then when we start shooting, I never discussed again with Chivo and Alfonso about what they were doing, because I was not seeing what they were doing, and Chivo was not allowed on my set either. So it was only Alfonso who was kind of the judge of what we were doing. But then it's a long conversation. Maybe, I mean, we don't have enough time to. But it was amazing, yeah. And they are both brilliant. Yeah. So it was a great experience. Working with another cinematographer is something special. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
And did you have those zooms in your mind from the beginning, or was it like
no? I mean, again,
because I really liked it, but I imagine, I mean, it was kind of, for me it would be kind of risky to like deliberately make a decision about making certain scenes in such style, because it's so much chaos. So
it was not chaos. I mean, it's just like so. It was Alfonso Cuarón expecting something. So he was. I remember I was operating something. It was with Sacha Baron Cohen, and it was kind of the camera was a bit shaky like that, and yes, Alfonso had the zoom, and he was zooming in and out. So I couldn't anticipate because I didn't know when he was. So, but he was looking for something, and only him was the judge of the result. In fact, I could disagree with him and said, you know what, I missed it. He said, yeah, I liked it because you miss it. And so I said, okay, if that's what you want. And it was interesting because since you have no connection, you know, I didn't know when he was zooming in or out. It was what he expected. He would have told me, I'm gonna zoom in. I would have anticipated, and then you have something which is not interesting, at least for him. It could have been interesting for somebody else, but he was pretty good at it. But he was looking for those accidents. So if you introduce different elements, you're gonna have accident for sure. But it's yeah, and he loved chaos anyway, Alfonso.
thank you.
Up at the top there, yeah.
Hi. I'm very honored to be here at this talk. It's a pleasure and honor listening to you guys talk and looking at your body of work. With that being said, I wanted to know, you know, throughout your career, you've been going through, you know, a lot of different directors, different stories, influences, inspirations, and whatnot. Is there anything throughout the years that is actually consistent and that you kind of find yourself always going back to? Like something that basically that always stuck with you throughout the career?
Anything stylistically you find yourself going back to and returning to in your career, any consistencies through?
Even though I desperately try to do it differently in each project, I know I have a tendency, the way I think about color, that, you know, warm colors are advancing and cool colors recede, and I use that as a contrast, as a level of contrast. So I think you'd see in most of my films the way I use color is kind of that way. And probably framing. I don't think it's like your fingerprint, how you frame something is probably the thing that's consistent. Camera movement, I don't know. I mean, now I've worked a lot with technocranes, even smaller technocranes, and it's a great way to move the camera around and find a shot, and so I'm more and more working off of cranes.
Bruno?
I think it's more what I'm interested in is in layers, the way it's the depth of light. Color is a different thing here, so I went too far on Amelie, I think, but it was, and then I switch off color in black. But I think what I'm interested in now, for a while now, it's how we can give depth to a shot and only with light, and that interests me a lot, you know. So, and how you play with those different layers like that. That's why when I work with a production designer, I always try to find a space which give me the opportunity to layer things and create a depth where I can play with. But and I agree, it's about composition as well. I'm very specific about it all the way through my stupid career.
And maybe rhythm, you know, I can tell when I have an operator in the first 30 seconds if they have the same feeling of a movement. That's really important to me, is that I feel that because there's a human behind the camera moving the camera, and so you feel that, and that's, I always say it's acting, reacting, like what acting is, you know, that the operator is the person that's reacting to the performance. So that's important to me. I mean, and Maria, Pablo wanted to operate a lot. And there's certain shots that drive me crazy because, you know, I always say there's negative space sometimes when in a pan. And in that negative space, you speed up the pan a little so you're not just, you know, where you're going, but, you know, you have to wait to, and he would just do the same speed, you know, it would drive me crazy. But
How about one more question? Yeah, in the middle. Have you got the mic?
Thank you for this talk. You both spoke a lot about being influenced by photography, and I was wondering, when you look back at your work, if you do that, so I know some people don't, when you look back, how do you see those influences manifest specifically, like the way you frame, or the way you worked with the zone system, for example, or stuff like that?
Do you see the impact, the influence of the still photographers on your own work when you look back on your career, and in what way, if so?
Well,
do you ever see
no, I mean, there are certain still photographers that, like when I did True Stories, I looked at William Eggleston's photos because, you know, he doesn't, in fact, he came on the set and was a set photographer for like a week. And he told me something that was very funny. And then I go, oh, that's how his compositions are the way they are. So he would say he would find the frame and knew what the perfect balance of the frame was. And then he would just move the camera a little. So he would break the composition. So I tried that in True Stories. But what happens is, when you're consistent in a style, people never saw that as weird. I thought people would think, oh, that's so weird. But they didn't, because it was consistent. A lot of times, if you do something to break the image, but you're consistent about it, people just accept that's the way it should look.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, the thing is, I don't think, I mean, for me, still photography was important, but there is other things which are important, you know, so, which are, it's how you feed yourself with things, you know, so, and which question what you're doing in the movie. So I remember, you know, William Forsythe, he was a choreographer. He did. There is YouTube video where you can see him explaining how he choreographs things. He said, if you start a movement like that, then that's half a circle. So with his arm. So what is the next move? It could be like that. Or what is the organic or movement? He said, oh, it could go like that, and then I go like that. And then he created an alphabet, you know, of different movement which coordinate to, which give his choreography, but it becomes infinite because, you know, with 26 letters we have all the language and so that's the same. So he creates those kind of language, and I think that for me it's interesting. He said, which is, so if I do a close-up like that, what is the next letter, you see? Do I go for another close-up, or do I go for wide? Or you see, so it's the language itself, which is what I learned from choreography in some ways. What I learned from or what I thought I learned from the Düsseldorf School of Photography was when you have a camera square on, absolutely at zero level, what your brain react to. And I like to have the camera at zero tilt, really, like that. It's better than this, it's better than that, just square on. So, but what the audience receive from it is what I learned from the Düsseldorf School of Photography, or certain photographer from this school. So I don't, it's all those elements you grab from, like Bob Dylan, What is a folk song? So anyway, it's a long answer.
Thank you.
Let's say thank you to Ed and Bruno for their wonderful insight. And
thank you.